Hello, I'm Dr. Michelle Jorgensen with Living Well with Dr. Michelle. Today I'm really excited about the topic. I'm going to talk to you about making bread with natural yeast. Now this is something that I've gone in and out of as I've made food for my family, but I'm definitely in it now, and I'll explain why. You know, grains have been a part of society for as long as we have recorded history, really. Grains have been the reason that people could stop following herds and start living in communities. They were on coins. They were one of the first measuring tools that they used. Literally, revolutions have been started and ended because of grains. So why are they such an important part? Wheat, maize, or corn, and rice make up the large majority of nutrients and calories that people have eaten from the beginning of recorded history all throughout today. So grains are an integral part to how we eat and how we get nutrition and how we get bulk and calories and all those things and stay healthy. But there's a big problem with these grains. The trouble is, and it's not a bad thing when it comes to storage for these grains, they all have a coating on the outside that has what's called phytic acid in it. That phytic acid is known sometimes as an anti-nutrient because as long as the seed is coated with that, it won't sprout. All the nutrition inside that tells the seed to sprout won't do it. This is fabulous for storage because you can find a seed of wheat in an old Egyptian tomb, pull it out centuries later, plant it, and it still grows. It's pretty miraculous, honestly. The trouble is that anti-nutrient, that phytic acid on the outside, plus the fact that it's very dry, makes it difficult for us to digest when we don't deal with that anti-nutrient. It also makes it so that we can't get all the nutrients out of that grain that we really need. The other problem with these grains is that some of them, particularly wheat, have very large complex proteins. One you've all heard about lately is called gluten, and it's difficult to digest. So if these things are so hard to digest and eat, how have we been using them for centuries? Well, our ancestors knew something that for some reason along the way we've forgotten. What they knew is that if you fermented these grains and the flours that were made from them, then you would actually be able to pre-digest those difficult to digest proteins like gluten, and also pre-digest some of the simple sugars and other things in that grain. Also, fermenting releases the nutrients that are held by that anti-nutrient. So our ancestors knew this. There's so many different varieties of fermented grain foods throughout the world. Start doing some research and you find that every civilization has their version of some kind of fermented grain food. They knew what, like I said, we've forgotten, that there's more nutrition to be had in these grains when we ferment them. Well, the good news is that that's exactly what natural yeast is. It is something that was used until really kind of the early 1900s. Everybody who made bread made it with natural yeast. There was no other alternative. Along came this thing called rapid rise yeast, or even compressed cake yeast, those yeast packages, you all know what I'm talking about. They were for convenience sake, because as you'll find out as I walk through this with you, making these breads this way with natural yeast is not a fast process. Well, the convenience of these pressed yeasts made it so you could go from flour to bread in literally 2 hours. You can't expect that the simple sugars are going to be pre-digested, that the gluten is going to be pre-digested, or that the nutrients are going to be released in that amount of time. It just won't work. So let's talk about how we use this natural yeast to our benefit to get the true nutrients out of these grains that they have inside of them. So first of all, you're going to need a starter. Here's my starter, and there's a lot that goes into starter. So I'll just tell you right now, I actually made an ebook and a video series to go along with this topic this week because there's so much information. There was no way I was going to be able to tell you in 8 to 10 minutes in this YouTube video. So this starter, I'm going to give you some very basics, but you're going to need to go to that ebook. There should be a link that you can click on and get to that ebook and video course and find out a lot more information. There's also a free guide. If you already do natural yeast bread and you just need a recipe or two or some of this information, there's a free guide that gives you a little bit, or there's an ebook and a video course that gives you a lot bit. So the starter is what everything starts with, and what it is just flour, water, and some yeasts. Now, where do those yeasts come from? Yeasts are everywhere. They're on every piece of grain that we've ever had. They're on fruit. They're on particularly grapes. Some other fruits like that. They're on rye grain for sure. So where do you get a starter? You can get one from someone. There's freeze-dried versions. You can get them in health food stores. You can get them online. You can get them from a friend. Or you can actually make your own. You can combine flour and water and let it just sit out for a few days. There's a few other steps along the way that my ebook explains, but you can make your own starter as well. It's a little less predictable with your own, so be okay with a few failures at first, but it's absolutely possible because yeasts are everywhere. When it's in this starter, now this yeast is very happy. It's wet, it's moist, it's cool, it's all of the things that those seeds love when they're planted in the ground. They love to be wet, moist, and cool. They love all those things, and that's what releases that phytic acid, releases all the nutrients. That's exactly what we're doing in here as well for this grain. So the way you're gonna do it is you're gonna just mix, like I said, flour, water. When you have this starter happy and active, you're gonna add this to flour and water to make bread. And literally the simplest bread recipes that we use every single week are flour, water, salt, and some starter. That's it. A couple of the really important tips that I want to point out is when you feed your starter, you're going to get rid of or pour off the majority of this. Literally, I'm talking the majority of this. At least 80% of the starter, you're going to pour off for other uses. My ebook has all sorts of recipes on how to use this other starter. So you're going to pour off the majority of it for other uses. Then you're going to keep just a little bit in the bottom. That's what you're going to feed for your starter. You're going to feed equal amounts flour and water, mix them together with the remaining starter, and let it get happy. This is a happy starter right here. See all these bubbles? This is a very happy starter. So you don't want to leave a lot of starter in here, otherwise the yeast competes for the food. The flour is the food. You want to leave just a little bit of starter, add a lot of food, and then those yeasts get really happy. That's something I didn't do at first, and I didn't know at first. You're going to want to feed this starter at least every 3 to 4 days if possible. I feed mine about every other day because we make a lot of different things with it, but at least every 3 to 4 days. If it languishes in the fridge, you forget about it, it's been there for a couple of weeks, you will go on vacation, don't worry, it's still alive. You're going to pour off the majority of it. Again, you're going to keep just a little bit, you're going to feed it, you're going to let it get happy again, let it use up that food, because really when it gets unhappy is when there's no food left. It's used all the food up. And you might find a layer of kind of black scummy water on the top. That's simply the waste that the yeast produced when they ate all the food in the flour. So you're going to pour off the black stuff, get rid of the majority of the starter, feed it, get it happy again. You may have to feed it again, pour off again some of it, feed it again, and then you let it get happy again. You want it to be happy, fed and happy when you're going to use it in your bread. Now, the way I make my bread, I actually like to hand mix my bread, which is interesting. I didn't used to. But like I said, flour, water, salt, starter. Simple, and that's all it takes to make a bread. What I do is I hand mix it together, a little bit larger bowl than this usually because I'm making more than one loaf. I hand mix it together until it's kind of shaggy, and then I cover it and I let it be for half an hour. And then I come back and I fold it. And the way you fold it is you grab your dough from the back and you bring it forward to the front of the bowl. You turn the bowl a quarter turn, grab it from the back, bring it forward, turn the bowl a quarter turn, grab it from the back, bring it forward, turn the bowl again a quarter turn from the back, bring it forward. That's called folding. Do I need it? No, I don't need it at all. That's the magic of this. I cover it again, I let it go for another 30 minutes, I come back, I fold it again, I cover it, I come back in 30 minutes. Now you think, okay, what if I don't have the chance to come back every 30 minutes? What do I do? You know, sometimes I've folded it 2 or 3 times, and that's it. That's all I had time for. After three times, you then wait an hour, do it a couple more times, and then it goes in the fridge for the night. This is the way I do it. Otherwise, you can use it right then if you want, but I like it to have a longer ferment. The longer it ferments, the better it's going to pre-digest those glutens, because I don't do real great with gluten. It's going to pre-digest the gluten, and I do fine with this bread. It goes in the fridge for me overnight, comes out in the morning, it's ready to go. I form it into loaves. You can form it into a loaf like this for a loaf pan, or you can form it into a loaf like this for an artisanal loaf. Either way, it doesn't matter. You're going to form it into a loaf. You're going to let it rise. As soon as it's just about half an inch over the edge of whatever it is that it's in, for this one, it's going to go straight in the oven. I forgot, you're going to make a slash across the top of it so that it will spread. When it hits the oven, it's going to have what's called oven raise, and it's going to spread. We want it to spread where we want it to. That's those cool little slashes you see. This one, we're going to dump it into a cast iron pan with a lid or a pizza stone in your oven. Those are a couple different ways to cook it. Then we're going to let it cook. And one tip is I always check it with a digital thermometer at the end, because I can't tell you how many loaves of bread haven't worked out in my house because I didn't see if they were for real done. You know, I tap on them, are they done? I can't really tell. This I have no question. So you pop this digital thermometer in, you check it. 200 degrees is what your goal is. As soon as you're at 200 degrees, pull it out, dump it onto a cooling rack, and then the hardest part of all, you have to wait for 30 minutes because the inside of the bread continues to cook for 30 minutes. It uses that steam inside to continue cooking. Do not cut it for 30 minutes. This is the hardest part. After 30 minutes, cut it and enjoy that delicious loaf of bread. So this has been a very fast version of how to make natural yeast bread because I simply can't do it any faster than that. And I can't give you all the details you need in this short little version. So please get the free guide. There's going to be a place to click, get the free guide, get the ebook, get the video course, and try this at home. This is a way that you can really increase the nutrition for your family and the deliciousness for their food. Thank you so much. Again, this is Living Well with Dr. Michelle.